This week, we have the interview that we were going to do last week.
Yeah.
But it got postponed because, stuff happens.
Yep.
And it's interesting because it's a little different.
It is. We're going back to Scotland.
Back to Scotland, to our good buddies in Scotland.
Yes.
So I don't know. I don't want to give too much away because it was a fun interview.
Yeah. We talk about a lot of stuff. It's the subject of it begins with is interesting.
Yes.
I'm glad we're not going to try and explain it again because I had a tough time trying to explain it.
Sure.
In the episode, which
sure.
you'll all find out.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of like when you get one of those big boxes and you open it and inside is a smaller box, and then you open that one and inside is a smaller box, and then you open that one, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. And then we just threw the boxes out at one point and just kind of went everywhere. But that's what makes it fun.
Well, yeah, I love when we do interviews, and so I mean, you and I are both nerdy.
Yes.
But you in particular love to go on nerd tangents about things.
I do.
And you got to do that a couple of times with Alisdair.
I did.
Yes.
All right. Well, should we get this great interview nerd tangent episode going?
I can't wait. Let's do it now.
We're off. Hey, B-Siders. Welcome to another episode of Bravo for the B-Side. This is Jim.
And this is Danny.
And today we have, it's an unusual episode.
It is.
We have Alisdair Cook. Hello, Alisdair.
Good afternoon. Hello.
Alisdair is the, bear with me. I've tried working out how to explain this. So Alisdair has written a book. The book is written by Tom Dempsey, one of the main characters in Redwood Massacre: Annihilation. So for those who haven't kept with it, let's just sum this up real quick. So in the movie, Tom Dempsey's daughter, Sarah, had gone missing 10 years prior. He'd been looking for her. So he wrote a book
about the search
and all the experiences. And in the movie, during a book signing, that moment is what brought him into contact with one of the antagonists, Max, who's something else. So it's a prop.
It's very meta what you've done here.
Yeah. So Alisdair has written
that
Tom
book.
Dempsey's book about the 10-year search and everything going on. And it's Redwood Massacre: Untold Story. Obviously, the first question is going to be, what happened? What gears were turning in your head that you thought, I'm going to take this. It's not even a prop.
Wow, to write this thing.
Yeah. I'm going to make this real.
Well, it sounds a bit strange, but it was the cover. The cover of the book that was done by the director, David. So I was part of that library scene. I was one of the extras in the library scene.
Yeah.
So I was sitting there and I had this book in my hands, and the direction that was given to me was, you're enthralled by Tom Dempsey. So I sat there and, you guys have seen the film, so you've seen my loving gaze on him. I'm not by any means an actor. But Dave and I have known each other since school, and a lot of the people that are involved in Dave's films have known him for many, many years. So I was sitting there with this book, and the cover, I just thought the cover was awesome, And
it is really cool.
It is.
It is. And we got Damien and John and Gary to sign it, and we got to take away copies ourselves if we wanted to. Although inside the books, actually, it's It's a hardcover. It's a hardback book, a big, thick hardback book, but inside it's actually a love novel, some sort of romance novel. So what Dave did was, I think he went into one of these shops where they sell books for $1, and he bought this big pile of hardback love novels, took the dust sheet off, printed his own dust sheet, put dust sheet on. But regardless, we got the cast to sign it, or the cast that were in the library scene. Excuse me. And came home with that. And I was just sitting looking at it thinking, there's a 10-year story here. There's a 10-year story that gets us to the place where John Campling's character is Tom Dempsey is explaining his journey to that point. And I thought that could make an interesting story. Yeah. Now, obviously, the film was still in production at this time. And when I spoke to Dave and said to him, I'd really like to write that book. Are you okay? And he's like, yeah, no problem. I don't care. He's really not precious about these things at all, which is great because you get to play around in that case. I went up and saw some more of the filming, and I said to him, look, just so I can get some of the characters right, can I get a copy of the script? So he sent me a copy of the script. And that's where I found out that some of the characters in the film have known each other through the previous search.
Mm-hmm.
So it became not just a backstory of Tom Dempsey, it became a backstory of some of the other characters that appear in the film, and some of those who are referenced in the film as, the rest could not make it. So who are the rest?
Right.
How were they there? How do you build this team of characters? And you guys have seen the film. Gus is a really lovable character, but you just get you get the feeling, and then the film confirms you just don't mess with him.
Right.
You just don't mess with him. He's a jolly giant until he's not a jolly giant. And there's a strained relationship between Tom and his other daughter Laura. Why is there a strained relationship? What's torn them apart? Because losing a sibling or a daughter can tear a family apart, or it can bring them closer together.
Right.
So why in this case did it tear them apart? So it became a story about obsession and the damage that I tried to make it a story about obsession and the damage that obsession can do to relationships. And I tried to veer away from the horror element because, of course, at the start of the film, I don't think this is much of a spoiler, he has not found the Redwood killer.
Right.
Right.
Sarah's still, inverted commas, missing. I'm missing, assumed dead by that point, you would think, 10 years. But she's still missing. There's no evidence, and he says himself in his monologue, there's no evidence of foul play. It's just people go missing.
Right.
Yeah.
So the story had to veer away from the horror side and look at something else. So I tried to look at the mystery of an investigation where, you go on this journey in the book and you don't really have an ending. Because most books would end with them finding out the truth or confronting the killer or something like that, but that's in the movie.
Yeah.
So, it was a challenge from a certain extent to do that, but at the same time, it's good fun. I really enjoyed it. And challenging to do, but, good fun. Really good fun. And that's kind of how it came about. And then it took a year to get to get the story out of my head and onto paper, although not really paper, laptop these days, but
there we go. To the fingertips.
Indeed.
Right.
Clackety clack.
Indeed.
Yeah. So I've read most of it. I wasn't able to finish it just because time and a whole bunch of stuff. But one of the things that I found really interesting when you were writing the book is obviously all of these killings take place in this one specific area.
Yeah.
Right. And so there is a nearby town, and this town, the way that you portrayed it and wrote it was really fascinating because we never really get to see, the locals in the area. Right. And I don't know. I found it really fascinating, and it captured me a lot, the way that you wrote in this town. Like, it has this kind of weird secret that nobody acknowledges exists, in a sense. So I don't know. I was curious how you kind of brought that.
Well, that's a good point, because that was one of the things that when you watch these movies, So I think back to, like Friday the 13th, Camp Crystal Lake, right? There had to be somewhere nearby. None of these places are like just out, devoid of human life for, hundreds of miles. And I always thought, well, how do the people in the area feel about all this stuff going on, And in later chapters of it, they did. They'd be like, oh, you're going to Camp Crystal Lake? Until they finally gave up going to Camp Crystal Lake and Jason made home visits. But that was one thing.
Space visits.
Right.
Oh, man. Even in Redwood Massacre, the fact that in the first film, there was 10 years ago, something happened to people and people have been going to this forest since to try and, thrill seek and stuff. And people have ended up missing. But that was an aspect that I had always thought. I'm like, there's got to be some little village somewhere. I mean, what do they do with all this?
Yeah.
And
it's touched upon in the book. I didn't go into too much of the why for them, and there is a reason for that. We have 3 more Redwood Massacre books coming out. 3 more are being written. So, some of the why is there because, you mentioned Meta earlier on, and I kind of took advantage of the little bit of freedom that Dave gives. Well, he gives a lot of freedom, but I took advantage of one piece, which was mentioning that a movie and a book had already been made out of the story. And that references the first movie, and then, of course, Chris Dunn's book, which is a novelization of the movie.
Yes.
So I took those out of, to a certain extent, out of the story, out of the true story, to say, hey, they've already made a movie about this. They've already fictionalized this and made it, but it's not really true it can't be the truth because it's a movie, right?
Right.
Movies are based on a true story, but they're never really the true story. So I took advantage of that to do that, because what that allows us to do is to go back and tell the story of the farmer, the burlap killer. He starts out as this farmer and there's this legend, and how does that grow? So one of the books is actually going to go back to that and tell the story of that up until the untold story. Until the untold story starts. And that gives us a chance to kind of explore mythology. And if you've seen the movie Annihilation, there's controversial parts of it, shall we say, towards the end that some people have loved and some people have hated. Yeah. But, intertwining, how do you get a local legend that isn't conspiracy at the start, but becomes conspiracy? Yeah.
Right.
So we're going to play with that. We're also going to do something with Max's character. We're going to give him a backstory because, why the hell not? That guy, Damon Buckler played him so brilliantly. I mean, he's so creepy and disgusting. And before I knew the part that he played, I gave him a lift in my car. I gave a lift back to the home they were staying at from the bunker. And Damon's he's a really nice guy. Really, really nice guy. And then I watched the movie and it's like, I felt that kind of creepy chill, the way that he played Max, to think that guy was in my car. He's capable of coming across that way, I don't know the right words to describe him without swearing.
You can swear.
Yeah. Yeah. This is language free, man. Let it loose.
He is a complete sociopath.
Yeah.
In so many ways in the film. And he plays it. He really nails that. He really does. So we're going to give him a backstory. And then we're going to do an evolution story from at some point after the film.
Right.
Because obviously, film does well, there's potential for sequels.
Oh, yeah.
So got to be careful with that one. So that was kind of the last on the list. Okay. Once we find out from Dave what's happening with the rest of the story. Because if he doesn't do another one right now, we can play. If he does, we got to try and fit it in, because it's the film actually opens up a whole new avenue you could go with stories.
Right.
At the end, there's the traditional slasher route, and then there's the untraditional conspiracy routes, and you could even go Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull route if you wanted to at that point. So that one's last. excuse me, sorry, this cough is killing me. That was last on the list, just to see where Dave wants to go with the story if he continues the story on.
Right.
The first two I can go back and I can play as much as I want.
Well, I would love to read more about Max.
Oh yeah.
Because, and that's the thing, David has the ability to introduce characters and to give you just what you need to watch them on screen and to go through the story. But he does all these little subtle things that you realize, man, there's a whole lot more.
Matured characters.
Yeah. And Max, we've talked about it. We're like, what was this fucking guy's game, man? That he wasn't just like, hey, I'm going to go do this. You could tell he's perfected. And we're, being horror movie freaks like we are.
Well, I'm also, I love film sociopaths so much and psychopaths. They're always my favorite characters to see.
Well, and we watch a lot of like true crime stuff, documentaries on actual horrible people. And, just watching, and, credit to Damien for playing this out, to play that, none of this is like tying my shoe. None of this is going to disturb me. I mean, he's settled in, he's got his routine, you wonder what the fuck is this all about? But hey, I would love to see some pre-Redwood Max doing his thing. That would be cool.
And it was actually, my niece said that to me. So my niece is 22, so she's not like a little kid watching this movie.
My 8-year-old niece said, "Hey, this sociopath killer, man."
I love that killer guy. No, but my niece actually said to me, we're in strict lockdown at the moment. So, we're only allowed to leave the house to get groceries, essentially.
Right.
So I do a lot of online gaming, PlayStation gaming with my niece. So we speak a lot, and she watched the movie and she said, "Oh, that Max character, I'd love to know what drove him to that point." And it's like a penny dropped, and said, "You know what? That's an interesting story, because again, it's a complete open book. This is a formed character. You can take the journey whichever way you want to get there, but you know where you're going with them.
Yes,
you know how it's to turn out." And that's the thing that Dave does with his characters. And I don't want to give him credit for anything, because it's not the type of relationship we have where we're nice to each other. So I don't know if it's deliberate or a happy accident that he writes characters that are already characters. So they don't really need much backstory,
right?
But they have nuance, as you said. They have that nuance. I'm a horror nut as well, like you guys. I love horror movies, and I can go back. For example, Freddy versus Jason, I can go back. It's popcorn trash, but I can watch it over and over and over and over again. But I still couldn't tell you some of the characters' names or anything specific about them other than the way they died.
I get that.
Redwood Massacre, the first one, the second one, Ghosts of Darkness, and even The Dark Within to an extent, although none of us really understood what was happening in that film, full stop. But, there were aspects of the character that were already there. That this was a fleshed out person without a backstory.
Well, I think that's something that David, even though he might not even intentionally do it, I think it's something he's just intuitively good at.
I was going to say, yeah, I think that's just how he writes.
Yeah, I think he loves film as well.
Yeah, which is a huge gift.
Yeah.
But it's also a gift to us as the audience, because we get this this isn't just shepherd's pie. This is shepherd's pie surrounded by rack of ribs and all this other good stuff.
Yeah, and seeing him direct as well, because I spent a few days on set as well as the library scene, because I lived 2 miles from where the bunker was when they were filming it. So on my way home from work, I'd stop and past and just sit and watch what's happening. And he gives a huge amount of freedom to the cast as well. I mean, he's not he doesn't sit there as you'd expect and go, "Right, I want you to start here, and I want you to end here, and I want left leg first, then right leg." And he doesn't do that. They've got their markers. He gives them kind of, you hear him talking through what's in his head rather than what they have to do. Okay. It's not instruction. It's more kind of, this is how I envisage the scene.
Building the frame.
I see her having fear in her eyes, but he doesn't say, once you're 3 steps in, get scared. He just kind of gives them a little bit of a story and then lets them do what they do. And when you've got the cast that he got, on this film was really quite a cast considering the budget.
Oh yeah.
When you see the cast that he got, the fact that could just do that and then have the kind of cast that could bring that to life. And as I say, how it looks in the film is completely different from how it looks when you're sitting around watching it.
Right.
Even just the angles, you're looking at the angles going, that's going to look really weird. And then you see it framed and everything else. And you're like, no, that really works. Because that bunker, it's a big bunker, but it's nowhere near as big as it looks in that film.
Oh, right.
I think the same corridor was used for about 7 scenes, but all from different angles. So you can't actually tell unless you know. Because my wife was saying, how big is that bunker? It's like, it's not as big as that. It's nowhere near that size. You would not get lost in it. But in the film, you get lost in it.
Yeah.
So yeah. I want to go back to your book, because one of the other things that is brought up repeatedly, and kind of has to be because of the way that these stories are told, and I think also allows you a lot of freedom in telling the stories, is because of the fact that there are no survivors, right?
Yes.
Except for Pamela, Dino Girl.
Yeah.
And so every piece of knowledge and every piece of lore and every piece of mythos about what is going on is hearsay, right?
Yes.
And rumors and, like deductions, but you never really know how much of it is true, how much of it isn't, and I think that's a really interesting place to play in when you're writing something.
It is. And again, you build the logic. So I didn't deliberately dodge the question you were asking about the village. I just kind of went off on one of those tangents we were talking about earlier. But, every writer nowadays, there's nothing new under this earth. You're just telling the same story a different way. And every writer steals from things that they've read or seen. Not consciously, but the ideas pop up. And the village was actually based every year. You know how everybody has Christmas movies. Now, my wife watches The Grinch and Christmas Carol and Elf and Santa Claus the movie, and I watch them with her because I love horror, but I love all films really, and I watch them with her. But I have my Christmas movies as well. Gremlins, Die Hard. I'm not having the argument, but it's a Christmas movie to me.
It's a Christmas movie.
Our daughter would agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
She loves that movie.
And one movie I watch every Christmas is An American Werewolf in London.
Oh, yes.
And when they walks into the pub and it's the Stay Off the Moors now, everybody's ripped that off. And that was probably ripped off from loads of, like Hammer horror type films and things like that. That wasn't original at the time, but it was one of the biggest instances where that interaction becomes critical to the film. Mm-hmm. Mostly it's done just to show that the locals are weirdos, but that interaction is critical to how that film moves forward. And when I was writing The Village and a lot of the villagers, that's what came to my head.
Okay.
That kind of atmosphere of protectionist for their area, because it's a village that thrives on tourism. It can't exist without tourism, but it has this horrible secret. So how does it hide the secret? Because if that secret comes out, as long as it's a legend, people will visit.
Right.
It's like Slains Castle up near us, was one of the inspirations for Dracula. People go to Slains Castle because it's an inspiration for Dracula, for Bram Stoker's Dracula. So it becomes a tourist magnet, on its own. But if it's true, it stops becoming a tourist magnet and starts becoming something else. So this village has to protect the secret, because otherwise the village dies. Yeah,
right.
To a certain extent, it ceases to exist. It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It needs people to die to remain viable, so that people don't disperse and the community is not broken up. Mm-hmm. So the community, is linked to that. And one of the things that played with me on my mind was the fact in the first film, the first Redwood Massacre film, it ends at a junkyard.
Yeah, and you bring that back in there.
So I brought the junkyard into the story. Yeah. And it's connected to how the village thrives or survives the rumor. So again, it's just something you can play with. You try and answer the questions you've got in your own head about the story. How how did they get away with this? Why are the police not interested? 30 plus people go missing in an area over a span of 30 years. How has that not got the interest of the authorities? How do you get away with that?
I liked the mention of going old school. There's this stuff going on, but now we have some local folklore. We have some, geographic folklore, right? Evil spirits and stuff. And I know, in the islands there, so Ireland and then, the Scotland and England, it's rampant with all this stuff. Even today, I grew up listening to "Don't do this" or "So this is going to happen to you," and McClaw's going to find you. It's like, and I was reminded of that. I lived in Arizona for a while, and was fortunate enough to work with the Navajo Nation in terms of education, and I was invited to a lot of Kachina ceremonies, and their whole practice way back was they tell these stories of there's hundreds of different Kachinas. There's the witch Kachina, and she'll bring the troll Kachina with her. So if as a kid you step across the line that surrounds the village, they're going to come get you at night. And that sounds hauntingly familiar to how I was brought up. Not, for your safety, you shouldn't do this. If you do this, you're going to end up fucking dead. Okay.
Something bad is going to get you and tear you to shreds and leave you in bits. And I'm not going to be able to put you back together that time. Yeah.
So I love the introduction of that. I want to jump to Tom a little bit and Laura's relationship. In the movie, it made perfect sense that Sarah having gone missing and whatever happened in that 10-year stretch really drove a wedge between them. Yeah. But you also felt there was something else. And I liked just right in the beginning, of the book, we're walking through that, not in gory detail, but, when you have two girls and then mom suddenly is out of the picture, and I loved how you described Laura, because I immediately thought of how Danielle Harris portrayed her on the screen. That was, you could see her as like 6 years old, just not taking shit from anybody.
Yeah.
My way or no way. So those reactions built up. And weirdly, reading this, we were talking about how David writes these characters. I didn't think it could be filled in anymore, but these little nuggets here from Tom's perspective really kind of fleshed out a broader picture that forced a replay of certain scenes and dialogues from the movie in my mind. And just, it filled in colors I didn't know were missing. And just kind of like, now this is a complete bouquet. Beautiful. And I don't think they suffered from not having that before, but that was, it was an interesting thing that happened to me as I was going through the book.
And that was part of the fun of writing. It was getting to flesh these things out, because as I say, you have a destination. And I think when writing a book, having a destination is half of the battle.
Yes.
I didn't have to think about how to end the book. I knew how the book would end. The book would end unsuccessfully.
Yes.
So I had to make that journey as interesting as possible. But yeah, I mean, in the film, obviously, she's feisty. She is not to be messed with. Even Gus, who's 6'4" with boots on, even he has nothing but respect for her, and a clear bond. They have a clear bond in the movie that's almost like brother and sister. And I thought, you've got this Gus guy, and he's carrying these big, huge guns and everything. You think, he's obviously written as ex-army. And knowing Dave and Dave's love for Schwarzenegger and Van Damme and things like that, I think he wrote him with the movie Commando in mind.
Yes.
Yes. So you got this hulking guy that's ex-army, and he can be put on his ass easily by this 5'0" brunette. And I think, how would that happen? Well, that 5'0" brunette needs to be ex-army as well. In my head, she has to be ex-army. She has to be something where she has been trained and gained discipline from. She's still got that fiery anger, but she's got a discipline and a strength that, when you I mean, you read and watch lots of different material. That's how, ex-army coming out come. It gives them a discipline. It doesn't get rid of necessarily the rough edges, but it gives a discipline and control around them.
Right.
And I thought, what drives a wedge between a father and a daughter? Well, it's usually rebellion. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you very rarely in a family get two siblings that follow the same path. You have the one that's the golden child, and you have the one that's the black sheep.
That's true.
So clearly from the movie, Laura was the black sheep.
Yep.
Which makes Sarah the golden child. And when I was writing Tom, I had in mind the movie and just the way that the character came across in those first opening library scenes. Interesting, but extremely condescending.
Oh, yeah.
Self-assured to the point of arrogance.
Yes.
So I wrote Tom as an asshole.
Yes.
Yes.
He's obsessed, and he's right to be obsessed. He's searching for his daughter. He clearly loves both of his daughters, but he's a bit of a self-centered ass, which again was really fun to write. Somebody who was just so cocky and self-assured, but had no real reason to be.
Right.
Life's privileges had gotten to this point, and you just got the feeling, and this is kind of backed up in the movie, that when push comes to shove and he's backed into a corner, he's a bit of a wet rag. So it was fun to write that as somebody who's so cock of the walk, as we would say across here, so self-assured, and but really deep down inside was insecure. And the reason that him and Laura kind of butted heads was his insecurities more than anything else.
Right.
Yes, he may have been rebellious, but he thought he was right the whole time and didn't like to be challenged. And I kind of tried to play that out throughout the story as well. So every time this trouble comes up in the book, he is the voice, but never the action.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it made me think of the film.
Oh, it's funny because I started reading the book before Jim did. And so I read it on my lunch break at work one day, and I come home and, we're sitting there talking, and I'm like, so I started reading Alisdair's book, and man, Tom is a dick. He is terrible.
Well, and it wasn't a hard sell. So when I jumped into it right away, it made me think of the film, and I understood, I understand how things can change people, right? There's movies about not the subject matter being who's missing, but what happens to the person on their journey, right? And sometimes we see the whole, 180-degree shift where they were just peaceful and this and that. Now they're just like sour, bitter, and ready to kill, right? But I just watching the movie, you just get the sense that I feel like this guy was born a real dick, and things have sculpted which way his dickishness is turned. But then, reading in the book, I'm like, same thing. I get it. His daughter's gone missing, and he loved his daughters. I mean, he wasn't, the reluctant parent. They were what he was all about. But then there's just a lot of things like, nope, that's just natural dickishness coming through right there. Right there. That has nothing to do with anything. Just confirms I'm a dick. No matter if this gets better, don't expect anything different from me.
Yeah. And that, again, that goes back to the thing about horror movies is people incessantly make bad decisions in horror movies. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, constantly.
It's staple for a horror movie. If you don't make a bad decision, the movie ends in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we don't have a movie.
Don't have a movie. But there was a part of me that thought, right, so one daughter's got missing. All he's got left is this other daughter. Why would he drag her into danger, knowing that, nobody has, one person survived, but, apart from that, nobody else has got out alive or even been seen or heard of.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a special kind of horror. That's a special kind of horrific that there's no evidence that anything happened in the first place. So why would you drag your only living daughter back into that when she's reluctant?
Right.
Why would you take her back into that and risk her life when that's all you've got left? And the only way that I can think that somebody would do that is not necessarily if they were a dick, as much fun as it was to make him a dick, But to make somebody so obsessed that their view on the world is completely blinkered, and they only see what they're trying to achieve. And that's him being a dick plays into that obsession. He's obsessed because he has to be right. He has to know. He cannot accept not knowing. And when he thinks there's something wrong and everyone tells him there's not, and it's potentially a suicide pact or something like that.
Yeah.
He is so up his own ass about being right that it just fuels his obsession even further. The more people tell him no, the more he wants to drive forward. And I also thought that played interestingly against the Laura character, who was a rebel, who didn't like to be told no, but she'd found a way to manage that and have discipline through that, through joining the army. It's covered in the book type thing. He didn't. He had nothing around those rough edges. They were still really rough. He had no control. He had no discipline. Once he was obsessed and once he believed he was right, he had to just drive on through regardless of the consequences for him and for other people.
Yeah. I particularly liked the bit where he's laying in the bed and as Laura's leaving the room, like, get out of that bed, I'm going to come back and break every fucking bone in your body.
Yeah.
And then he, we have him. Well, I didn't think she would actually cause me that level of bodily harm, but I was also not going to stick my foot in that pond.
Yeah.
I liked that. We right away fell in love with Gus on the screen.
Everybody did,
because the big tank, right, is going to be one of two. There's no other kinds of character. It's one of two. The hardcore. So again, thinking of like Commando, right?
Yeah.
Arnold's adversary, just hardcore. Nothing good about him. No tenderness. He's just like, somebody turned me on. The switch broke, and I'm just going to go until my fucking batteries run out, which means I'm dead. Or you've got the guy like Gus, who is probably the most dangerous human being you could be standing next to.
He's just such a teddy bear.
But he's so loyal and soft and everything. And I loved the way you used that in the book from their first meet after the accident, just all the way through. Gus, you can see where, of course, Gus is going to be there for the next search.
Yeah.
Right. After 10 years, it enamored us even more because he is that, giant ass teddy bear, and all of a sudden, he's a grizzly.
Yeah.
And that's what you want.
He's the absolute heart of the movie as well. When you watch that film, he is the heart of the movie. He brings levity. He brings a bond and relationship with the other characters, apart from Tom and Laura, Jennifer, is connected to Gus. Laura is connected to Gus. Mm-hmm. Tom and Laura are obviously connected, but Tom is connected to Gus.
Yeah.
He's the center. He's the pivot for the team.
Yeah. He's their compass.
Yeah. And writing that was actually one of the easiest parts, because one of the people I spoke to most when I was on set was Gary Casper, who played Gus. And the character of Gus is Gary. He was the heart of the set. He was the big, gentle giant. He was really nice. He looked terrifying, but he wasn't. He was really, really nice and really, really friendly. And, the whole bunch were friendly, but there was just something warm about him. When he smiled and the way that he carried himself, he was just the loveliest guy. And, I wrote Gus as how Gary had treated me when I was on set.
Okay.
That really nice, generous, welcoming, felt like if you needed something, if you needed someone to talk to, he came across the kind of guy that would listen. If you needed help with something, he came across the type of guy that would help. So I just kind of wrote him as Gary had acted on set outside the film. And it just so happened that within the film, he kind of is the same. It's the same way. And again, Gary's, he's a big guy. And he's a stuntman by trade, I think. Most of his backstory is stunt. So he's a tough SOB.
Oh, yeah.
But again, when you meet him and when you talk to him, and we've done a few Skype things or Zoom things for Facebook Live and things like that, and he's just all laughs and smiles. I mean, just the nicest, friendliest, warmest people, one of the warmest people you could meet. And that was it. That was Gus. That's what Gus was going to be in the book. That's how he was in the movie. You know, there's no way around it. Loyal as a Saint Bernard, deadly as a grizzly.
I love it.
Yeah.
That was so when they did the Redwood Massacre and Redwood Massacre Annihilation double feature on Facebook, I was disappointed because I got to talk to Diner Girl and everything. But then, well, first of all, Liam said it'll be about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you'll get bumped out. So an hour later, I'm still talking, right? And I loved it because you were off and on. And Lisa was on and everything. But then I had to go and get dinner going. And Danny had just come home.
Yeah. So I hop on and then like all of the people from the movie hopped on at the same time.
And Gary's on there. She's like, Gary Casper's on. And I'm up to my elbows in the kitchen. I'm like, son of a... So I finally was able to just come over and go, just so I could say I waved to Gary.
Yeah, but I say that he is like he is in the movie. That's how he comes across in real life. You know, he was really good in film, but you know, only some of that was acting. I think some of that was just him being himself.
I think that comes out though through a lot of performances. I think there's always at some point an actor's going to have that where character and fiction meet. Well, this is who I actually am in this moment. And I think that's where we get some like really grounded performances.
Because at the end, you know, when he goes to confront the burlap killer, you know, it's the hairs on the back of your neck and the hairs on your arms stand up when he, you know, finds Jennifer's body and is going to go, you know, that's him. He's in grizzly mode, but it's almost touches upon a breakdown.
Yeah.
You know, that switch is gone and he's no longer concerned for his own safety. He's all about vengeance at that point. But even then, he's likable about it because he's got a right to be vengeful, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, he played that to a T. I think, you know, him, you know, Gus and Max were the two absolute standouts for me because you didn't expect either of them. You know, Max, you did not expect that level of sadism.
Right.
You know? Not from the film necessarily or the character. And you're introduced to it straight away. There's no...
it's not like a spoiler.
He's got a secret.
Yeah.
It's like, look, guys, he's a bastard. And he makes Game of Thrones look like Peppa Pig.
Yes.
You know? And then the same with Gus. Those two performances for me, it's a lot of good performances in film, but those are the two absolute standouts. Those are the ones that you carry with you, that you remember. When you think back, you remember those two characters and those two performances above all else, almost.
Yeah. Well, with Gus, I saw it as a breakdown because it was that moment. All these tough guys, right? All this isn't like I'm, you know, backed into some little hut and there's 400 soldiers out there, right? They don't get that kind of breakdown. They get it that, you know, that's what they're trained to do. This is what they're all about. This is broken bodies, just, you know, terror, shit that isn't supposed to happen, shit that's supposed to only happen in movies. And then someone who's very, very close to you see done up on a table, right? And that was, you know, when he found Jennifer, that was, just crack.
Yeah.
And then the only safe place for him to go is grizzly mode.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to tear this shit up and end it now. That's all he knows is, you know, I'm going to bring a resolution to this conflict. And the way you wrote him in the book, I could get that. It's always orbiting him.
Yeah.
You know, he'll support you, but he'll tell you, hey, no. This is, you know, you got to think of it this way. But he's always going to look out for your best interest, and that is sometimes going along with it, even knowing this is going to fucking end well. But hey, you know, when he falls off, I'll be there. You know, can at least do that.
And the whole way he's introduced in the book, and his sticking with the group through the book is about carrying guilt for something that he couldn't stop.
Yes.
Which again feeds back into that, a little bit of obsession, but for him it's less obsession and it's more guilt. And he goes back out there because he feels he carries guilt for people that he let down, that he couldn't save.
Right.
So I could mirror what happened in the film into the book to actually introduce him as a long-standing character rather than just passing through.
Like it's a bit of a penance for him.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, that comes from, where does somebody get that get that approach to life where you have loyalty, but it's not just loyalty; it's built around respect and honor and that sort of thing. So you imagine if you see someone that you love being butchered, you've got fight or flight in a lot of cases, and in a lot of cases, flight is the right answer. But if you've got an honor code and system, and also that carrying of guilt of failings of the past, that's going to push you in a different direction. You're forced down a different path at that route because you just cannot keep failing. In your own head, and I guess we all get there somewhere in some way. You just can't keep failing people. You can't keep letting people down, even if you've not. You just can't keep letting people down.
Right.
So you take a direct route to trouble, which is what he did in the film. He took a direct route to trouble, and in the film, it's that breakdown and the backstory I've tried to give him says he's carried guilt in the past, but he's never reached breaking point. So it's almost like the film is the straw. It's the last piece of guilt.
Right.
As well as the loss of somebody, it's the last piece of guilt of letting somebody down that he is able to carry. Yeah, so it doesn't matter anymore what the outcome is. He's going straight headfirst into this killer who's more than a match for him.
Well, yeah, as we're talking about it, the scene's just running through my head. The way and David's angles were so great. Bam, just throws it down. Burlap throws it down. Gary's all right. Yep, that's it. Come on.
And away they go.
We know how this is going to go, you bitch.
And it's very much like, if you watch the nature shows of two big moose in Canada kind of coming together like that. I mean, it's very much like that. It's like two freight trains. Or I'm a wrestling fan as well. I'm a big fan of wrestling. Soap opera for men. It's essentially. I mean, that's what it is, isn't it? It's a soap opera.
Yeah.
Where guys slap each other and women slap each other and things like that. But it's like that. They used to say when two of the big guys got in the ring, the movable object, meets the it was just gone from my head. The movable object meets
irresistible force.
Irresistible force. That's it. And that's what it was like. This was not going to be spinning kicks and agility and wires, people floating above, and if you want that, you get Damien to do that. This was two Hulks that were just going to smash and bash until somebody couldn't smash and bash anymore.
Yeah.
But I love that. I love that end bit as well. And I remember sitting with Gary, and he was going through things. He was going through things in his head. He's like, "What would I say? What could I say? What could I shout? I'm angry." And, he's actually going through that. He's sitting on a couch, looking relaxed as pie, but sitting saying, I need to say something. I've got to have something to say. I've got to shout something, And, he wanted to get a line in that I don't think was in the script, just something to rev the engine.
Right.
So it's kind of to G himself up to go for the guy.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, like the moose, the call.
Yeah.
I love that you just made a moose sound.
I know I'm saying. And not just the sound, but the antlers.
I always move.
Yeah.
But I think that was actually probably the best analogy because of all the things we've seen. On nature shows, you've seen bears and all these things, and wolves and stuff. But the moose, they start so far apart, and they just like eyeballing each other, and they just start slowly walking towards each other. Like, this is on. Yeah, I know it's on. And then, wham! Yeah, they start charging together. But I think that
nobody's
perfectly describes what happened in that hallway.
So I want to talk about a character that in the movie doesn't really have a whole lot of backstory and doesn't, like, we don't really know what she's about. And it kind of, for me, when I saw her, I was like, oh, she's the red shirt. That's her role in this movie. Which ended up being true. But so Jennifer in the movie, like, she's lovely, and I can't remember her name. That's so embarrassing. Tevi Poe, yes. So she was in Clueless. She was in a whole bunch of stuff, and I just adore her. But in the movie, you see her come in, and you're like, she doesn't really have I don't know why she's here, except that she's going to be the first person that dies.
She doesn't quite fit.
Right.
You've got these strong characters. She's quite quiet and reserved, and she's not the usual. She's the usual horror movie victim.
Right.
To a certain extent.
Right.
But she doesn't seem to have a place in the group.
Yeah. And so in the book, you give her a role as a profiler.
Yeah. Somebody who observes.
Yeah, which I thought was really interesting because in the film, everyone is a little like suspicious and thinks that Max is a little fishy, except for Jennifer.
Yeah. And it was completely deliberate because, again, when I was bringing together the characters, there were some I could bring in who weren't in the movie, and it was really easy to give them reasons to come in. Slightly more difficult to give them reasons to go out, but trying to bridge that gap. But she was a character that was there that clearly wasn't used to the situation that she actually found herself in. Oh, yeah. She didn't expect them to find anything. And I think for her, and I think I more than alluded to it in the book, I think I actually downright said it, that she's profiling them as much as she is the killer. She's got an interest in the killer's story and everything, but she's also kind of profiling the group to make sure that they're sane. and frictionless. So she's she's almost using it like research into people. But of course, at the same time, she doesn't really seem to believe in any of what they believe and what they're obsessed over. She's almost sitting on the outside looking in. And I think that made it easy to write it like that. And then the film comes along and she's a profiler, but she misses the sociopath. Oh, yeah. Because she doesn't really believe that any of them are in the danger that they actually are in. She believes it's a group of obsessive people that have come together to try and deal with almost like group conspiracy and group grief. Right. And here's just another one come in. Yeah, he's going to be weird because you've got the obsessive father, you've got the rebel daughter, you've got the gentle giant, now you've got the slightly oddball, quiet guy who has a chiseled jaw and a, body that was sculpted out of clay. So she just gravitates towards him because she's handsome, but she doesn't believe that any of them are really dangerous. So she's almost drawn into a comfortable zone with the group. So somebody's new added, expect them to be weird, expect them to be a little strange, but at the end of the day, they're going to be harmless. Yeah. So it's almost like she's let her guard down because she knows the rest of the group. Yeah. Yeah. I just thought those, because, when I first read it, and it was like, she's a profile. And I was like, oh, that's. She should spot him a mile away. Yeah. But then all of the other characters, with probably the exception of Gus, if you were to write that as a mystery murder novel where one of them was a killer, they'd all be suspects. Oh, yeah. They'd all, they've all got character traits of psychopathy in there. Oh, yeah. If it were an Agatha Christie novel. Yeah. It could be any one of them.
10 pages from the end, you'd be tearing your hair out. Who is it?
Yeah. It was going to be Tommy. It was Dick.
Or it was that bartender from the village the whole time.
Yes. The one who flirts with you to try and delay you from doing anything else. Yep.
Oh, so for me, the most heartbreaking character is and will always be Pamela, Dino Girl. Yes. So in the movie, when we saw Lisa's face pop up on screen, we're like, fuck! oh, this is no way for her life to end. Son of a bitch.
Yeah.
This is terrible. And, we've gone on and on about that. And then reading the book, find out the shit she went through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And ends up in a fucking mental institution.
And comes out and disappears.
And had just gotten out.
Yeah.
And then, starts getting life together. And then Max that didn't happen in the book, but Max shows up, You took a crushing sorrow and amplified it about 1,000 times with the information you came up with for her. What drove you to that route for that character who was triumphant, and then in the opening of the film is just eradicated by some asshole, like not even her nemesis, just some crazy shit.
Some guy.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things, and again, having the destination helped, because you had to have a destination where she gets, absolutely destroyed by somebody after defeating the biggest evil that essentially the world knows in this film. That the burlap killer is he is the Freddy, he is the Jason.
Mm-hmm.
So she survived that, and you got to look back at it and think, right, how do you get somebody to that point? And then how do you fill in logic holes in your own head? Because again, if you've got a survivor, you've got someone telling a story, you've got someone who's witnessed events and things like that. So one, they can't be believed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they go down the route of they never talk about it and probably end up hanging themselves in the living room. Yeah.
Right.
Or they talk about it and the world goes, you're batshit crazy. And we need to put you somewhere until you're not batshit crazy. And obviously the theory being, much like putting Michael in the sanatorium in Halloween, is they know the truth. So she knows the truth,
mm-hmm.
and she's punished for it. So eventually she's got to shut up and pretend it's not real. Otherwise she would be punished for it for the rest of her life.
Right.
So I don't think that she ever stopped believing it was true. But to get out of the situation, she had to let her guard down and try and get back into normal life.
Right.
To get out of the sanatorium. And then when she does that, the guard is down. It makes it easy for somebody to then slide in one way or another under the radar.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to give too much away because obviously the Max book ends where the film picks up again.
Right.
Well, if listeners don't know by now,
covered.
because we've covered this film twice. It just broke my heart, especially because knowing that history, I compiled that on my vision of the scene with her and Max and how she's trying not to plead because it will anger him. Yeah. But then she has to plead because, you can see there's no way out. And oh God, everything about that scene. And then at the end of reading that bit, because I read that bit twice, because I was layering, Pamela, because we were rooting for Dino Girl all the way. And then it always ended after reading the part in the book, ended with the part from the movie with Max. It's just so much fun. Yeah. Starts going after her. God.
What it gives us a chance to do is it gives us a chance to look at the two different killers. Because on the one hand, you got the burlap killer. He's the Terminator. He's all machine, no man. He just walks through a hail of bullets if he needs to kill. He's just, there's nothing there. There's no emotion. There's no pleasure. There's no pain. He doesn't seem to enjoy it. He does it out of almost an urge or a necessity to do it. He's not, the burlap killer never seems to enjoy it in the way that you sit down in front of good steak and you're like, oh, this is really good.
Right.
He seems to have almost a mechanical approach to it, which says, I have to inflict this pain. This is what I am.
Right.
I'm not going to dance around. I'm not Freddy Krueger. I'm more Jason Voorhees. It's a compulsion.
Yeah, it needs to happen.
Whereas with Max, it's a pleasure. It's something he revels in. And I think, when you contrast the two killers in that way, Pamela has to do something to survive the burlap killer. He is obviously this monster. There's no facial features. There's no expressions. There's no speaking. The body language is all anger.
Yeah.
And mission. It's and a lot of people have talked about this, the little nuanced turns of the head and things like that. That's an alert. He's got an alertness.
Yeah.
And a compulsion to act. Whereas Max is different, and I think you switch into survival mode depending on what you need to survive. So to try and survive Max when he got her in that position was different because she thought that she could connect in some way because there's verbal sparring and there's she can see his eyes.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a face.
Aware that this is the end, but I can try and connect to something in him to be able to survive this. Whereas with the burlap killer, you can't do that. You got to run or you got to fight. There's no talking him down.
It makes me think of
the humanity of him.
It makes me think of the line from Terminator. Like you said, he's the Terminator.
Yeah.
Can't be reasoned with, can't be bargained with.
Yep.
That's it. Although I would disagree with one thing. I don't think that he's getting pleasure out of it, but I don't think he's as mechanical as say Jason was. Because there are several points we picked out in both movies. It's almost like a childlike curiosity, not for pleasure, but one of my favorite parts when we first see him go to work is with the camper. He's got the hacksaw. He's running it down the guy's body. And then all of a sudden, Ben does that legendary head snap and kind of looks like, what do you think, right here? Oh, what about right here? And then he just kind of, through that mask, gets that look like, this is it. And then he just goes to it. And
it's like a compulsion. He has to do this. It's something inside him that he has to do. He's not necessarily doing it because it's going to be fun.
Right.
As you say, it's curiosity. It's the feeling of the need to do it, to discover something about himself or discover something about, I'm assuming by the 30th, 40th bodies, he's still, he knows anatomy pretty well by that point. But it's compulsion rather than a pleasure driven or, I watch a lot of Criminal Minds. I don't know if you've seen a lot of Criminal Minds.
Yes.
They talk about all the different types of serial killer and sadism. And, I think Max would be, if he was in that show, he would be your fairly typical sexual sadist.
Yeah.
Although, he also has sex with the dead bodies, but he gets off almost on the act of the violence. It's like a sexual satisfaction for him. Whereas with, as you say, the curiosity of the Redwood Killer, it's not a pleasure thing. It's something different, and it's kind of hard to nail down because no, he's not as mechanical as Jason, who's walks, kills.
Right.
But there's, it's not to the point of the Freddy teasing and enjoying the chase and everything else. The Redwood Massacre, the burlap killer never seems to enjoy the chase.
Right. That was something we picked out in the first film.
Right. It's almost like he's a little annoyed by it.
Yeah.
Well, there's a scene where he just throws the weapon down like these fucking kids. They're getting in the way of him doing his thing. And it's like, I just want to do this thing. I've got to be doing this thing. I don't have time to be pissing about with survivors and interlopers.
And if there's anything left of him from the days he was the farmer in the legend, that'll be, how farmers kill. They don't kill for pleasure. They kill for necessity, compulsion to feed their family or something else.
Right.
They're very methodical about it. And they don't want to chase a cow around a field to put a bullet through its head. Really, do they? They want to get the cow, take it into the shed, do what they need to do, cut off the bits that they want to cut off, and carry on.
Right. Stick the dick in the jar, and then
yeah. Again, that goes back to the curiosity. More Davids than anything else, I think.
Oh man.
Yeah.
And the thing with the farm too is, the whole thing of don't name the animals. Farmers always tell their kids, don't name the. You don't see them personal. As living creatures. You see them as commodities.
Yeah.
This is our milk, our meat, our eggs, and that's all they are. And we're not gonna, feeding them and taking care of them isn't because we love them. It's they've got to make it to a
They're
point
going to
where
taste better.
yes, that's basically it. But,
and again, I credit David with the way that the burlap killer is, and how the backstory of the farmer. I'm not sure if David, in his own head, consciously connected the two together, but he did. That wouldn't have worked had it been a barman. One, it would have made a ridiculous story, completely unbelievable. But two, a barman went crazy and is now this hulking beast of a killer. A farmer makes sense, methodical, practical, does what he has to do. Doesn't and the Redwood killer's the same. He doesn't leave. He doesn't do anything that doesn't, I guess, if you're to look at it from his perspective, need to be done. So he finds the part of the body he wants to cut, and then he cuts it.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't cut it a little bit and look for a reaction. Cut a little. He's not Freddy Krueger with the one finger going across the belly to see how the person reacts. It's, I found what I need to do. Now I'm just now I'm in the zone.
Yep.
Now I'm doing it. And I think that makes him an interesting adversary for the heroes of the film, but also, again, a contrast with Max, who is completely driven by a base impulse of pleasure, which ends up being his downfall more than anything else.
Yeah.
That's what gets him in the end. It's not anything clever that our heroes do. It's he cocks up.
Well, yeah,
he tries to be too clever.
I call it the fanboy ending, where you have someone who's enamored with, and he expects there's going to be some sort of elevated interaction when he meets his idol. It's like people, here when they go to Hollywood, it's like, oh, I'm going to go meet, so-and-so. And then
Harrison Ford.
And Harrison's going to invite me over.
Any fans in the world, is happy enough just making his movies and going home.
Yep. Yeah. He's going to invite me to lunch and we're going to kick it off, and then I'm going to have a job doing this and that. No, it's going to be like you said. He's going to look at you like, he'll do the quick thing maybe, but just, I just want to go back to fucking Wyoming, man. Get out of here, please. Yeah. And that's what Max, I got the sense that he was like, I'm here to, honor you. And then return, he's expecting, well, all right, chum, you can be my sidekick. You can be Robin to my Batman. And nope.
I think that's how Dave sees how, if he ever met, so Dave loves Van Damme, especially Van Damme of old. I would imagine that when Dave was writing that, he was writing, he had this giddy excitement of if he was meeting Van Damme. But hopefully he doesn't think that's how it would end. But you're right, it's that ultimate fanboy, and Dave's inner child, I think, would come out if he got offered to do something with Van Damme beyond anybody else. I think his inner child would come out there, and it's very much that giddy excitement of, we're going to connect on a personal level because I know you so well through your work.
Yes. Yeah. And that's just it, the whole, and then having a piece of it too, having a piece of that fandom, the mask.
Yeah.
It's like, that was just,
And I gave it back to you. We have to be friends now. We can get coffee. We can kill together. You kill them. I'll sleep with them.
Ooh. Well, I suppose that would work. It's not.
That's his thing.
That's his thing.
It's not often a line you would expect to hear, but
it's not. It's not. Actually,
man.
it's quite funny because we did a live watch through of Ghosts of Darkness last night with Paul Flannery, and Michael Coltis joined us for a little bit as well from China.
Okay, wow.
And I think it was actually cut out of the movie, but there was a line at the end of the library scene where you see the guy sitting on his phone very briefly. He's sitting on his phone beside Tom Dempsey. And Tom Dempsey's doing his speech. That's his age. That's supposed to be his literary agent who arranged the book tour. And he stands up and he says, next week, join us again here. We'll have Jonathan Blazer, who's one of the characters from Ghosts of Darkness. So it's almost like Dave's building this interconnected, his own universe, his own version of the Marvel universe.
Oh, I think that would be awesome.
That's super fun.
Yeah.
relatively easy to do as well, because if you can believe one thing, and you can well, not believe, but if you buy into the story enough, then supernatural versus slasher versus psychological versus crazy herbal Nazi tea.
I was just gonna say, I would love in the next burlap movie, whether it's it should be Redwood Massacre or something, because you got to keep the franchise out there in front of people.
Absolutely.
I would love to see somebody from Herbals show up in it, right? Even for just like a passing scene. All these, and David has set up this little universe where he could have these Easter eggs and these gentle crossovers and things. And it kills me to this day. He still doesn't grasp how many people have enjoyed these movies all the way through.
Again, that was a conversation last night. Ghosts of Darkness has an audience. Redwood Massacre has an audience.
Yeah.
Attack of the Herbals has an audience. I was one of the writers on Attack of the Herbals as well. So that's because I say Dave and I were at school together, as was Dave, and Liam was there, and the Herbals was everybody from school, essentially helping Dave try and create his vision. But yeah, and I love that movie because I was part of it. It truly is a terrible film.
What? I love it. It's so fun.
It is great fun, and it's almost as much fun on screen as it was to make. So I'm right at the start of that film as the evil Nazi scientist guy in the big white lab coat when he's getting the tea poured in.
Yeah.
But before that, we'd filmed a scene where I was a paparazzi photographer rolling around a forest, taking photographs of somebody's husband cheating on them or something like that. And where we filmed that is part of where Redwood Massacre is filmed, in Otter Woods.
Oh.
So these kind of locations also, this crossover in the locations, partly forced through budgets and things like that, but also just because they're damn good locations. But yeah, I mean, I love Attack of the Herbals, but it's not well acted, and the writing.
Well, no, but that's the thing.
It's great fun.
That's just it. It's fun, and it's fun because it's not Oscar-winning performances. It's not going to ever get Best Screenplay, Academy Award, but it was still. You guys made something that was clean, clear, fun. You didn't expect any more out of it than what you were getting. And you got everything you wanted, which was just this is going to be ridiculous, and I'm in it.
It's there.
Like
it exists now forever.
Yeah. Like one of the things David commented on a chase scene from a movie, and he had a gift from it. He's like, "This is the all-time greatest." And I fought back. I replied to him, "No. The mobility cart scene in Attack of the Herbals is and always will be the best chase scene ever to us."
And so slow. And it's so slow and so ridiculous. And the guy who plays the Roadrunner in the seat, Richard, he is his character. I don't think I can't remember ever writing him that way, but how Richard is. That is how he is. He is his character. He's very outspoken and self-assured, shall we say? He's living in the Far East somewhere. I don't know if it's Vietnam now or China. I think he's in China now.
Wow.
And he's out there. I'm not sure what he's doing, but he seems to be loving life. But yeah, the Roadrunner is him. And again, I think one of the reasons he's one of the better portrayed characters in the film is because Richard didn't have to change to be the Roadrunner.
Just kind of brought it.
It
showed up. Here I am, guys.
It's just how he was.
Well, our daughter loves that movie, and we talked about it. And we're like, there's nothing. Certainly not a Max post-murder scene.
Yeah.
So we let her watch it.
The worst it's really got is some swearing, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, and she's heard far worse than from me than any film could ever hope.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of blood in it, but like what kid doesn't play violent video games where there's blood everywhere or see blood and stuff?
Yeah. And it's such
and
fun
it's blood. It's not really gore. It's just red stuff splattered about.
Yeah. But
Redwood Massacre is slightly different.
It's a little bit. I mean, obviously there's an evolution.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
I would love to see the three of these come up. And I hope he does go to Vegas. That would be awesome if he would follow through from the end of of Annihilation
and turn up in Vegas.
Turn in Vegas. Because number one, we told him if that happens, we're gonna be there. It's a 4-hour flight.
Yeah,
we'll be there, man, to haunt you.
Bright lights, big city.
Yeah.
And again, take the story in a completely different direction because I don't think there's many forests around Vegas.
Nope, there's a lot of desert.
No, but
desert.
it could. Vegas. Sometimes when they mention Vegas, it's a geographic mention.
Yeah.
It's not the actual city because I don't want to say not too far, but also in Nevada is like Reno and Lake Tahoe, where there are some wonderful forests. So they could have a bunker just outside of Vegas. He could make his way because those fucking semi drivers will pick anybody up as a hitchhiker, and no questions asked. So they'll pick Burlap up, drop his ass off in Tahoe, and then he just goes.
Yeah,
ruins everybody's summer vacation.
But yeah, Vegas itself is kind of like someone. If you've ever had those, like as a kid, those crystal grow kits, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like someone grew a city out of the desert.
It does seem a really strange place to have anything. When you see it in the movies and that, it's as you said, it's just structures in the middle of a desert surrounded by nothing.
Yes.
Yeah,
or it seems to be.
Pretty much.
And I'll never forget.
That is
pretty much what it is.
The Fright Night remake, with I forgot the boy's name. He ended up being killed by his own car. He was in Star Trek, the Star Trek remakes. His name is slipped past me. Thomas and things like that. Anton Yelchin.
Anton Yelchin.
Yeah. There we go.
And he was in that.
Poor kid.
And I'll never forget that there's like this new housing estate of new houses, new built houses, really nice houses. And there's nothing. The other side of the wall was just dust and desert and desolate. Yep. And to me, that's how I see Vegas now. It's not the bright lights and the Elvis and the Celine Dion and Britney Spears and Siegfried and Roy and all that kind of stuff. It is a house. It's a set of houses surrounded by dust. No matter how nice you make those houses and lawns and streets and everything, when the camera comes up, it's almost like a movie set in itself. You built this to make a movie, and you're going to tear it all down and just leave the desert.
Yeah, here's
That's
your
what
utopia.
Vegas is to me now.
And right on the other side of the fence is the apocalyptic remains of Earth.
Yeah.
And if you know somebody who lives there, can I just put a camera boom in your backyard and just kind of do a slow rise shot? Because man, that'll be like 80% of the film right there.
Yeah. We'll superimpose the hordes of the undead.
There we go.
There you go.
Oh, what would you like to see next in the Redwood Massacre universe? And don't worry about what, if David has something working in Vegas. I mean, just because you've dove into a level most people don't get into, right? I mean, you've had involvement and you've been there and you've seen people and stuff, but then you took this on, so you've kind of created your own addition, right? So you've added a new bedroom to the House of Redwood. What would you most like to see happen next?
So, and this is a difficult question, which is why I'm leaving the third book to last, or the fourth book to last, the third new book to last. David's given me a kind of high-level description of what he would like to do with the next film.
Okay.
And if he does it, if he gets to do it, I am going to be first in line to see. I'm not going to say anything about it. Obviously,
we respect David's secrecy.
I think he's talked to us a little bit about it too.
If he gets the opportunity to do it, then I think it's going to be fantastic. Now, if I look at the other side of it and think, if I was to be continuing the story on from where it was, I would like to take it to Vegas. I think that would be a really interesting environment for the Burlap Killer, again, because of the mixture between high tech, bright lights, and desolation. Yeah. So this is a character that's only ever known isolation and desolation and destruction, introduced into a slightly different environment. but I'd be really afraid of how you do that without, having a Jason Takes Manhattan moment.
Right. Well, I just had a thought. I just had a crossover thought. So it burlap in Vegas would be Redwood Massacre meets Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
I think it would be so much fun to see burlap get stuck in some sort of, I don't know, drug-induced
nightmare.
Yeah. That, like just 5 minutes of burlap on screen trying to navigate the world as he sees fit. Right.
Yeah. Trying to cut somebody's leg as it swirls in bright pink and orange colors. But I mean, there is because the other side of my love of movies is abject stupidity. So Airplane, Naked Gun, Animal House,
yes,
Revenge of the Nerds, things like that.
Yeah.
I love abject stupidity. So there is also a part of me that would love to see Burlap Killer go to Vegas and for him to be somehow find himself on stage sawing people in half and everyone thinking this is a great magic show. And he's actually standing there with a big saw, happy as Larry, cutting this person in half, and doesn't understand when he pulls the saw away, separates them, and there's no guts. There's a part of me that would love to see something like that. But again, you'd get sick of that. That's a skit, isn't it? You'd get sick of that really quickly. But I love abject stupidity. And the one challenge I always have when I'm writing is not to try and put my humor into the story.
Sure.
Because my sense of humor is, it is abject stupidity. It's making mild innuendo at the most inappropriate moments and things like that. So when I was doing the book, obviously there wasn't much place in it for humor.
Right.
This is a horrible story that families have got to go through and things like that. And I tried touching upon some heavy subjects around mental illness and things like that as well, because you had very rarely does a mother leave a whole family and never see their daughters.
Right.
So again, I didn't want to have too many loose ends, but I didn't want to delve too deep into it. So I needed to give it something as to why would a parent do that? What would drive a parent to do that, specifically a mother? So very few places for humor in it. So, that I think, looking at the other books in this, like Redwood Massacre Max, which is the current working title for the next one, that can have some humor in it because Max is sadistic, but he's sadistically funny as well. So I can actually interject some humor into that one, and I think that's, for me, I love comedy horrors. So Redwood Massacre 1 and 2, they haven't had much room for levity. So if nothing else, as the series continues on film, I'd like to see not quite the evolution of Freddy Krueger or the Leprechaun or things like that, but just a little more levity, a balance between the two, because Annihilation was quite dark in a lot of places.
Yes.
And you almost felt you were surviving along with the characters on the film. You're sitting going, oh no, don't do that.
Right.
And that's good, but a little bit of levity, not from the killer. I don't want the killer to change, but some of the characters around, and again, going to Vegas or somewhere like that gives you the opportunity to lighten outside of the killings, to lighten the mood a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I think you'll have a lot of fun with Max. I'm already feeling like American Psycho kind of vibes.
Yeah, it's entirely the journey of how does he become this sadistic. So the question in my head at the moment is that the first time he's had sex with a corpse?
No.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I'll agree.
So how do I write necrophilia?
Well, be careful with the research, because I feel like that's a rabbit hole you could go down way too far.
That is,
and then we'd be talking to you in a very different conversation.
Yeah, if not by the internet police, my wife enters the room and says, what are you looking at? SearchForDeadPeople.com.
It's for research.
It's for research.
It's for work. It's for work, I swear.
Yeah. But yeah, it is. I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into it. So I've got kind of my broad story laid out, and I kind of know the different stages and phases because I've got 40 years essentially to play with.
Yeah.
Story, 40 years of story. And I can go anywhere with this as well. So the destination is the guy comes out to be one of the sickest son of a bitches put on film. Great. There's nothing off limits at this point.
Nope.
Yeah.
Necrophilia, done. Animal mutilation, easy. Bestiality, maybe not. We'll steer away from that one.
I don't know. Maybe if they're dead.
Yeah. Once something is dead, human or otherwise, does it cease to be that thing and just become a dead thing to start poking? Or
it's an interesting question. So that's one of the things that you can play with is the psychology of the sex with the dead person. What does it mean to him?
That's exactly it.
Is it a show of remorse? Is it just a release? Is it trying to retain an element of control after the main? Is it the spooning to the orgasm, where the orgasm is the murder?
Right.
Yeah.
And the necrophilia is the spooning. But you know what I mean? There's that big release for him, and then he continues to do stuff with the body. And I guess why would you do that? What drives that? And again, I don't want to linger the book on the disturbing parts and more kind of look at the psychology of why, what drove him there, what keeps him there, and how the hell wasn't he caught?
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting thing, because the one thing about Max and a lot of various types of killers, Max, I mean, they like to do it, in secret, obviously. They don't want to, hey, I did this, but they want their work to be seen. Only Max is starting to cross that border in Annihilation. Yeah. He wants, at least one person to know
who he is.
This was my work, me. Yeah. And he wants that recognition.
Yeah.
But what the film has given me is it's given me one key line towards the end, which allows me to broad brushstrokes on why he hasn't been caught. And if you think back on the film, there's a key line towards the end of his story.
We'll have to ponder it.
Yeah, it's just before he meets Burlap Killer in the flesh and gets his comeuppance.
Is it what Laura says to him?
It's not what Laura says to him. It's what the other lady says to him.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yes.
So again, one of the key things is, why do the authorities not step in? So many missing people. And if you've seen the film, you'll know why. You can put two and two together at that point. And there's a key reason that gives me a key reason, or one of the key reasons as to why he's never been stopped.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. Yeah, that's
and again, it's just these little tidbits that you can pick up and say, right, that closes a logic loophole for me.
I like
it. Which is always easy. It's easy if these loopholes are already closed.
Well, yeah. Yeah. Writing towards the end that's been established.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to say it takes the stress off. I think it is a different kind of stress. You don't have to wrestle with, is this ending going to tie up all the loose ends and bring that oof? It's more, how many loose ends can I create that make sense, that make that known ending, it's like all these movies about, like ex-presidents, biographical movies on, Lincoln or William Wallace and all these things. It's like, we know the end.
Yeah.
But what can we do
between?
Make it more, which usually means let's just take history and wipe our ass with it and then just come up with all this nonsensical shit as long as he dies in the end.
Yeah.
As long as William Wallace goes down, right? Then we're good. Only for you, because it's fiction, it is. It's like a cornucopia of possibilities.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool. Really cool.
And having a character to write to as well, you could view it as restrictive, but I think an author's worst enemy sometimes can be how open things are.
Too much freedom.
Too much freedom. Trying to create a character out of thin air and have them interesting. And actually, all these loose ends that you write a story. You want those loose ends to start narrowing and coming together. And even if there's a few, because every story has a few loose ends, it's almost impossible to avoid. Even if there's a few, the main ones that people would ask themselves are answered. And by having that destination, it means I'm always going to drive to one point with the story. So I don't have to worry about that. The flip side is, I can't make the character a 7 foot, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Nazi monster dream. He is a formed character. By the point that you meet him in the movie, he has learned and earned his craft, and he's a very specific person with a very specific approach and a very specific set of skills.
Right. You don't want to have that conversation where David calls you up and says, "So Alisdair, so about Max, I like where you went as a kid. This was really cool, but were the 2 chapters of him getting anal probed by aliens necessary? I mean, is that really sculpt who he is?" I mean, that's the danger of being able to go way too far. And bring
you
it
say
back.
That, but I think if I put that in there, that would probably be Dave's favorite part. based on the necrophilia and the penis in a jar. I think he'd be disappointed if that wasn't in there.
Oh, were you
Maybe
on
Dave has some really dark stuff he's just working through.
I think so. Dave cracks me up. I love speaking with David. Were you on the live view when he was talking about having to go to the bathroom all the time?
Yeah.
And when Lorraine texted him and he read her text out, and we were talking, and as I came up with, I'd like to see in the next film, not only Penis in a Jar 3.0, but we need prostate in a jar.
Yeah.
The David prostate. Nice big swollen thing. And a line in the movie just where someone says, "Man, that thing's swollen up like a David's prostate."
That was the other thing is I got to be a little bit mean to David and Liam by naming characters after them in the book. You poke fun at people.
Yes,
a little bit. So David and Liam are both characters in the book. Nothing like them in real life. I just coming up with names is always difficult.
Yeah. But, I caught that. And that's one of the things. Being having talked to all of you guys and had lasting interactions. When I see names pop up, I know David, Liam. That it's fun, and that's the kind of thing I think that has been created with the Redwood Massacre world, right? And with these coming books, it's going to just strengthen it more, where it has a familiarity with the fans, and that's where I honestly think, like we mentioned earlier, the whole Marvel Universe thing. I think that people would just love to see if Stephen Worsley could walk on in Vegas, even if as a dealer or just like a waiter, right? I know
somebody serving tea.
Half the people watching would just lose their shit. To be like, Steven!
I think you could do that with some of them. Maybe not the Redwood Massacre, because obviously, the tone of the Redwood Massacre is far more serious. That and The Dark Within are 2 serious toned films which David's done. And then you've got Ghost of Darkness and Attack of the Herbals, which are 2 lighter toned films. I think if you were to do a Ghost of Darkness sequel, you could have a lot of fun with referencing Redwood Massacre, Attack of the Herbals, The Dark Within, because you'd get away with it more. And I think if you did that more with the Redwood films, you could maybe make references, but they need to be serious reference.
Yeah,
I think the Ghost of Darkness gives you. I'm still saying to Dave, we need a herbal verse. We need a whole universe around Attack of the Herbals.
Yeah,
yeah. And he said, I don't want to ever do that. Go through that again. That film's dead to me. But no, you could have a lot of fun. But at the same time, writing a book is easier than making a film in a lot of ways because it costs you nothing but time.
Right.
Really.
Yeah.
You're putting your time into it, but you don't put a lot of money into it. So you can write a book and it can go nowhere. And all you've lost time, and if you enjoy the writing process and are proud of what you've done, that doesn't matter. Whereas if you do a film, you put, tens, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of dollars into it.
Yeah.
You expect to start seeing that back. So, I still have in my head that, once I get this year out of the way, the 3 Redwood Massacre, I'm trying to get 4 books out this year. 3 Redwood Massacre books, and then another personal project, which I'm working on.
Okay.
And then next year, in my head, I want to do a Herbalverse.
Yes.
Which plays with Attack of the Herbals and the idea and just the slapstick silliness of it.
Yes. Well, anytime you have a group of
and it
people
costs nothing.
speeding away on a boat, right?
Yeah. Right. Just abandoning.
That's the ripe fruit, the low-hanging, super ripe fruit of, we can take this anywhere.
And we did talk about doing a sequel to it after it was made, before it was sold, before it went out to the market, and before Redwood Massacre became a thing. And there were talks. If I remember right, we'd actually started drafting an outline for a sequel. And I don't think Dave will kill me for this because he doesn't want to do anything with it. But it was about the village getting quarantined and having to send the army in.
Okay. And
when they went in, it was like a mixture of kind of, the Neil Marshall film Doomsday. Yeah. Kind of a mixture of that with Escape from New York and things like that, where Liam's character, Camel McGregor, was now this warlord of mad herbal people. And to survive, they needed the herbal life force that came from the tea, but there's no tea left. So how did they do it? Well, Liam had been skewered with a javelin at the end of the first movie, and they put a faucet on his chest. And because he drank so much tea, he'd become a pure herbal source.
There we go.
Essentially, he would stand there as the king, and they turn the faucet, take some of his blood, and pass it out amongst his worshippers. And an armed unit, special forces unit, had to come in and try and, they had to try and quell this and get rid of him. And that was the start of an idea for a sequel. And I still love the slapstick silliness of that. And I'm not sure it would actually translate into that great of a movie, because the faucet on the chest thing is pretty bizarre. I
absolutely think it would. I
think it'd be a fun comic book.
Well, I think it would be a comic book, but I think you could do that in a film, because there's stuff that is way wackier than that. Yeah. That is hard to swallow, but ends up still being so much fun. And to see Bennett like fully take over as he's the main draw, that would be hilarious.
And he was a hilarious
I think it
character.
Would work.
Oh yeah.
He was Liam played him really, really well. For somebody who's not an actor, especially, not somebody who seems to really want to be in front of the camera. I don't think he appeared at all in Redwood Massacre Annihilation.
He had a small cameo as a photo on a camera.
Yeah, and then he was one of the voices over the radio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was it. Yeah.
But he was in Herbals. He was in Ghost of Darkness. He was in Redwood Massacre's The Farmer. I don't think he was in Dark Within, because it was more or less 2 or 3 people. But, he didn't show up at all in Annihilation. For somebody who doesn't, seem to want to act, Bennett was really well done. He was, really funny and off the wall, and just a strange performance. But
it's clear he had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
And he could. It's the type of movie and the type of role where you can be as ridiculous as you want, and it's going to work. He's over the top. He was supposed to be this stereotypical, essentially a Scottish Donald Trump.
Yeah.
You know, just this egocentric rich person, walking around in a kilt because that's how everybody sees Scottish people, Oh, you all wear kilts, don't you? Well, every day.
Yeah.
So he walks around in a kilt and everything else. He's just a walking caricature of a Scotsman. And yeah, Liam played him really, really well. And some of the bits that we wrote in that got cut out were just, the scene where Roadrunner gets hit and he ends up in the wheelchair. We actually had at one point after Bennett hits him, the guy who plays Bennett's kind of valet, that guy, his head pops up from Bennett's lap.
Huh.
And he just kind of pushes him back down. We had that. We also played with the idea of doing, of Steve Worsley's character, whose name I've forgotten now. But he was explaining what had happened to the Roadrunner. So obviously he was this big hero. He's going to the Olympics and everything else. He did it using toy cars and action figures on the table in the pub with everybody looking at him like he was an idiot. He's down in a drink and he's like driving along and he plops a character, go boom, and the plastic figure goes talking up and all that kind of stuff. Because the other thing is, it was true micro budget. It was like $10,000 or less or something like that. And you just don't know how much of it you're going to be able to film and make look real. So, if you have someone being hit by a car,
right,
you got to make it look like they had been hit by a car, even if you don't show the collision.
Right.
There's a certain lead up that you've got to do to it. And if you can't do that, how else do you tell the story?
Right.
And action figures and things like that. And, there was a whole start for the movie was shot and was never used because it just made the film too long. And, of these films, these niche films, you can only have a certain duration. If it goes 2 hours, people, doesn't matter how good it is, people are watching that. They don't really want to see a 2-hour Attack of the Herbals film. But the main character, the reason he comes back is he's a big. It's intimated in the film. He was a big lobster seller, big international global lobster salesman.
Right.
And you see him losing his job, and then his wife leaves him for a woman, and then he gets kicked out of his house. You actually see him calling. There's actual footage, and I don't know if they've still got it, of him calling a guy a big inbred ugly motherfucker, and he gets punched straight in the face for it, and kind of wakes up, and he's a bit of a sad sack walking around the big city, and then he returns to the village, and you had all that filmed and everything, and then it was it wasn't needed for what the film was.
Right.
Right. It wouldn't have added anything to the film. Maybe a couple of slapstick moments, but it wouldn't have driven the story forward at all.
Well, that's kind of the thing, and we're running into that because we just started. We fleshed out a story for a script a while ago, and then just tons of things we haven't been able to write in a long, long time. So finally, we're like, okay, let's get back onto this. Bam! So we reviewed all the stuff, the story outline. We have it, the outline. We have the synopsis. We have all the beat cards and everything, the scene cards. And we're like, hey, let's go. And just the other night, we realized, because we were just going, we usually have a routine. So we set up, we have a playlist of music that we play in the background. We light some incense, make some coffee, we sit down, and we go. Boom, 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 boom. Well, that night, we were so excited about getting to it. We didn't do any of that. We just sat down and started writing. And the hour and 15 minutes passed. We're like, holy shit, it's 10:15 already. We didn't do this, and we didn't do that, whatever. But then it was going so well. And the fluidity of the scene, this particular beat in the story, we looked at our note cards and we're like, wait a minute, we have fucking gone way off here because, and we've talked about this, where sometimes no matter how much planning and shit you do in the beginning, it's when you're in that momentum that you see, no, the story just takes its own turn. Like, okay, this is where it's going. Okay, so we're going to cut out these like 5 pre-planned scenes and we're going to just do them from scratch and let the flow go because this needs to, the story's telling itself.
Yeah.
And we've had the reverse of that where we're like, this is, nope. So when you go through all that and then you have your shooting script and then you've got your dailies and you've got your, film, and then you realize, start putting it all together. It's like, well, it's look good on paper. Yeah. But the way I have this,
worked.
The narrative as visually, yeah, this has to go. So until the day you sign off on it as completely done, you're always killing your babies and all of that.
And that's the struggle I've always found with, particularly with screenwriting, is I'd like to flesh out characters. It's something that in my head. So I write backstory and I write, flashbacks and side conversations that reveal more about the character's true identity and what drives them and everything else. And you sit down and you go, right, nothing happens for the first hour of this film. If this was to become a film, nothing happens. And I suffer from being a huge Kevin Smith fan.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Okay. I get it.
He, especially his early films, he writes like nobody I've ever seen write. Because, you think about Clerks, nothing happens for 90 minutes. And it's one of the best films I've ever seen. And nothing happens. It's all just characters, people speaking.
We did an episode covering Clerks. We also did Madness in the Method. Jason Mewes' first directorial debut.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. That's not out over here, I don't think.
Oh, man, when you do get a chance, it's worth it. I
think it was on Amazon Prime US, so I don't know. I'd keep an eye out.
I'll have a look, yeah.
Yeah. But that was the thing that we talked about is Clerks. It's one of those things. Nothing fucking happens.
No.
It's not even a story about nothing. It's just nothing. It's 90
just
minutes.
Speaking. It's just people chatting.
And I think what made that work was we get exactly who these characters are, because one thing I think Kevin Smith does well is conversation.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
None of it's wasted. He does not have a character who's just going off on some superfluous rant just to show he's an asshole. Every word that character says hits home in the story, in the interaction. If not showing us who that character is, they're shining light on another character who may or may not be in that particular scene, but it all comes around. Yeah, we love Kevin Smith. We love the View Askew universe.
I had the pleasure of, when I was in Houston, I went to see him at the Improv Club in Houston, where he was doing one of his, just standing up, shooting the shit. It was a Q&A with Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
So you could go up and he got asked over the period, I think it was about 2.5 hours we were there. He answered 3 questions.
That sounds about right.
And he was just standing up there and he said, look, if you have stories or you want to tell stories, just tell it. Do a podcast, do a book, write a script. It doesn't matter what happens to it. It matters that you created it, that you went through the process. And he said, it's never been easier to achieve.
Yeah.
All of these industries used to have guarded entry. Movies used to have guarded entry. Media, news, entertainment always had guarded entries. There's someone there telling you whether you were good enough or not. And it didn't matter how good you were. It was their opinion. And he said, none of that exists anymore. Get a microphone for $20 off the internet, record it on your computer. You can find places where you can upload it for free and just start doing it. Just don't wait.
Mm-hmm.
And the very next day, he was at one of the comic book stores doing a meet and greet. So, got the chance to go along and queue in 95-degree Houston sunshine.
Oh, yeah.
To meet Texas. The guy. Yeah, good old Texas. And, again, just an experience you wouldn't expect because, he's obviously got somebody there ushering people through. And they're not ushering you through because you're taking too much time. They're ushering him through because he stands and speaks to you like a human being.
Yeah.
Complete and utter attention and listens. And I shilled the first Redwood Massacre film to him. I printed, because it hadn't long come out, so I printed out the poster and I asked David to send me a poster and printed out a copy and I handed him because I couldn't get a copy of the film in time. But yeah, just such a nice guy. And then I saw him in Scotland, him and... I've forgotten his co-host's name. One of his co-hosts' name. Anyway, it was the Ralph Garman. It was him and Ralph Garman in Edinburgh, And they actually showed a bit of the Jane Silent Bob reboot, the bit that Ralph Garman's in. And again, just talks about nothing and is the most entertaining. And when I write, I think I'm Kevin Smith. So I'll talk about nothing, and I think it's great dialogue. And it might be great dialogue and things like that, but it goes nowhere. And when you've got a film that actually needs to go somewhere, it becomes completely superfluous.
Yeah. You have to measure it with the end product.
Yeah.
If you have a film like one of the reasons I like Kevin Smith's movies is my favorite kinds of films overall are slice of life films. So like Local Hero, Station Agent, all these things where you just feel like, honestly, not a lot's going on. You're just you feel like you're like attached to the hip of somebody as they're just stumbling through life. It's not any like high moments or low moments. It's just this little thing. And, that's like Clerks. You just felt like you were painstakingly stuck to the hips of these two people who are like, God damn.
You didn't want to be there that day either. But
no.
You were.
Right.
You're not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to be here, man.
Yeah.
Let's all go. But, and that's where it works. But yeah, if you have something that's like what we're currently working on is a sci-fi action / drama. So there's no time. Yeah, there's no time for meandering conversations or, reflections and all that shit. Every word has to count.
You have to be very economical about it.
Yeah, has to move the character development forward or move the story forward. One of those two, which is kind of because we have a horror comedy that we wrote, and there's some just random shit. A lot of it, and it works because we worked it where we want to pay homage to little things, just a line here or something. When they do this on the set, will be this thing here to pay homage to films, like Reanimator and things like that. So, that's always a challenge. Always a challenge to figure out your pacing.
Yeah, and I think that's why I enjoyed writing the book so much, because I'm not a huge reader. I don't pick up novels. I like biographies and things like that, but I'm not a huge reader.
Right.
I love my movies. But when I think about telling a story, I want to tell it in a way that seems to fit better with a novel than it does with a movie. Because with a movie, you want to sit down, crack open a beer, get some popcorn, watch something for 90 minutes or 2 hours, and then go. You don't watch movies in bite size unless you have to. You sit down and you watch a whole film.
Yeah.
Whereas with books, that they're made to be consumed over time.
Mm-hmm.
So if the first 10 chapters of the book don't get you directly to where you need to go, but are interesting, you don't feel robbed by it.
Right.
You feel enticed by it. Whereas a movie is different. The first hour of a movie, the first hour of Avengers was, Iron Man deciding whether or not to go back and chatting with his wife and his daughter and them out fishing, although I'm sure Robert Downey Jr. could pull it off, but you'd feel a bit cheated by that, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You'd be sitting there going, come on, I want Thor with his top off, or, Black Widow with her top off, or, Captain America with his top off. Just somebody take a top off. But, you could make a really interesting film of just Tony Stark's day if you knew that it wasn't linked to an Avengers movie. I don't think you could do it now. And Robert Downey Jr. could pay it off. But can you imagine just a day in the life of him? I mean, that would be one of the most interesting things you could see. But but it doesn't fit with the narrative that they built.
Well, and that's with spin-offs. So like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
Right? When it first started, it was a very different pacing and idea of the stories that they were going to do. It was taking place in the Marvel Universe, but it wasn't all jacked up, go, 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 go.
It was this sort of like side bubble.
It was like the administrative side. Yeah. Here's the bullshit everyone else has to put up with that they, don't get recognized for. Kind of like, it's the mail clerk kind of thing. But it was started to become a dreadful failure because fans were like, no. You said Marvel, God damn it. Marvel. Yeah. And then anything after that's irrelevant. It could be, Marvel diaper changing. Yeah. Well, that's fine. But you better have things and big explosions and like 30 people on screen. And I don't want to know what the fuck is going on until it's explained to me to the end. Boom. So then they switched to that. And then the series was like,
watching it.
Yeah, that's when we
I think
stopped
it was during
too.
the second season. At some point in the second season, I got a bit. I really enjoyed the first season, and then it just
Yeah.
This is one of those tangents, but WandaVision. I don't know if you started watching WandaVision.
Yes.
Just saw the last one last night.
I haven't seen the newest one yet.
Okay.
So I'm still on the episode 3 is where I finished. But again, that and the Mandalorian, they've managed to create again those meandering. We're going to tell a story. I think they've got their head around how to do it in the Marvel universe by making them a bit more bite-sized. So 25-minute, 30-minute rather than
4 hours,
45-minute, 50-minute. But even Agents
for
of
the
S.H.I.E.L.D.
films,
is like a 50-minute TV show. So,
right.
WandaVision, Mandalorian kind of swung around, and WandaVision, I think it's about 30 minutes an episode. And one of the great things about streaming is, and it was something on Netflix, I can't remember what it was I was watching on Netflix, but I realized that episode 1 was like 41 minutes, and episode 2 was 47, and episode 3 was about 33. It didn't matter how long it lasted. It was as long as the story needed to tell. So it could be longer or shorter. Whereas network TV, you've got to fill an hour slot with, you've got to have 15 minutes worth of adverts and 45 minutes worth of content and so on. On streaming, you don't have that issue. You tell however long the story needs, and it comes to its natural conclusion for that episode. And I think that suits things like Marvel. Hopefully they won't screw up WandaVision like they did Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I'm so curious about what you will think of the 4th episode of WandaVision.
Well, I will let you know once I've seen it.
Okay.
We won't say anything about it.
I'm desperate to find out what's going on. I don't have patience. If they put it all up in one day, I would have watched it all in one day. But it is actually nice again to be able to schedule TV shows according to a release rather than I'm in the middle of one thing and something really interesting comes out and I binge watch it and I go back. It's nice to have proper episodic formats again.
Well, I was going to say, speaking of, books, tell us where we can get Redwood Massacre, The Untold Story.
Amazon is the only place at the moment.
Okay.
So you can get it on Amazon on Kindle or paperback. And if you're Kindle Unlimited, you can get it on Kindle Unlimited for the time being.
Okay.
For the time being.
Well, I being the first book that I published and I self-published it, I missed a trick with Kindle Unlimited where you can't sell the ebook anywhere else while it's on Kindle Unlimited.
Oh,
okay.
And there's 2 sets of terms and conditions for Amazon. So the high level one says the Kindle edition will be completely unique to Kindle to Amazon. You can't sell the Kindle edition elsewhere. However, you can continue to sell paperbacks and other versions elsewhere. And I thought other versions, PDF, that's another version, because Kindle in itself is a file format.
Right.
Sure.
But when you actually delve into the terms and conditions, what it means is when they say Kindle format, they are rather arrogantly saying ebook.
Yeah.
As if Kindle is the only ebook. So as long as it is on Kindle Unlimited, you can't sell it through Barnes & Noble as an ebook. You can't sell it through Google as an ebook or any of the other ebook suppliers.
Okay.
Interesting.
But you only sign up for 90 days at a time with Kindle Unlimited. So I think I will, based on how much you get through Kindle Unlimited, I think I might have sold more copies through other sources than would have been read through Kindle Unlimited. But you can still get it there. You'll still be able to buy the ebook and buy the paperback.
Okay. So my question was just going to be, speaking of books, do you have an anticipated release date goal for the next one?
So Max is, I think it's the 29th of April. It's actually already available for pre-order.
Oh, okay.
On Amazon. Kind of, it's either brave or stupid, but again, having a finish line, having a deadline, forces you to keep focus on it. Now, I've found that when you hit that writer's block, when you hit that wall, it's good to have a few projects you're working on because you can change gear and rediscover your creativity through telling a different story in a different genre.
Cool.
So that's, I work on 2 books at the same time, but one is my main book, the other is my writer's block book.
Sure.
There you go.
I swap between, and then once Max comes out, my main book, my writer's block book becomes my main book, and then I have another writer's block book. So I think it's 29th of April that Max comes out, and it is available for pre-order as an ebook only.
Okay,
but it will come out ebook and paperback as well.
Sweet.
Excellent.
So not long to wait. I'd say the story almost writes itself on this one because it's a mouth-watering prospect. I'm really, really enjoying the Max one because, all bets are off. We
can't wait. It'll be fun. And we'll of course have links, listeners, in the show notes for stuff, and in a couple months when that time comes, we'll hit it up, let everyone know, because otherwise nobody makes $1 in this business. So
it's all about cross promotion, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
You build a big enough group of people, and you all work together because it's hard. The hardest thing about the book has been the marketing. The writing of it took care of itself. Marketing and getting it out there. I mean, that's the toughest part of this process.
Oh yeah.
I think it's a tough part of the filmmaking process as well.
Oh yeah.
If you don't have someone to do it for you, you think you're going to release it and it will find an audience on its own, and it just doesn't. You have to find the audience, and once you find that audience, it snowballs a little bit. But you got to get it out in front of the right people.
Yes,
who enjoy it enough to be passionate about it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, folks, we have been speaking with Alisdair Cook, who wrote Redwood Massacre, The Untold Story, which is the book one of the main characters, Tom Dempsey, wrote in Redwood Massacre Annihilation, which turns out was a refurbished romance book with a fancy jacket. So excellent work, Alisdair, for your involvement in the films, all the way back to Herbals, because we love the shit out of that movie.
Oh yeah.
And this book, and we want to talk to you about Max when the time comes, and just all this stuff, because it's all part of the process. But we very much appreciate you giving us your time.
Oh
and,
yeah.
Thank you very much.
That's one of the things about lockdowns. What the hell else have you guys got to do but talk to us? So works for us.
What am I going to do? I'd probably be watching TV. And this has been far more enjoyable and far more memorable. So thank you very much.
Oh, good.
All right, B-Siders. You know what to do and how to do it. Website, www.lordsofmisrulproductions.com.
You can find all the stuff there.
It's all there. All right. So until next week, folks, this is Jim.
And this is Danny.
And we'll talk to you soon.